You walk into a room, and before anyone has even looked at you directly, something inside you has already stepped back. It's not that you were pushed out, you just never fully arrived. Your body is there, your voice is ready if someone asks you a question, but a quiet, invisible part of your awareness has already drifted toward the nearest exit, the window, the corner of the ceiling. It's like watching a scene play out from behind a thin sheet of glass. You can see the laughter forming on people's faces. You can hear the rhythm of the conversation, the way they trade sentences back and forth like a ball they all know how to catch. But for you, there is a split-second delay, a lag. By the time you think of something to add, the moment has moved on, and you are left holding the words in your chest like stones you can't set down. This feeling follows you home. It's there when you scroll past photos of people you used to know, people who seem to have found a gravity you lack. They cluster together. They orbit the same jokes, the same memories, the same ease of being. And you wonder if perhaps you were born without that specific frequency that allows other humans to tune in and stay locked. You've probably learned to mask it well. You know how to nod, how to ask questions about their day, how to be useful in a group so that your presence is justified by your function. But the mask is heavy. It presses against the bridge of your nose and makes you tired in a way that sleep can't fix. There is a name for this undercurrent in the language of psychology, but it's not a simple one. It isn't just shyness, and it isn't just introversion, although those things can brush against it. It's often rooted in a specific cognitive pattern known as heightened self-monitoring combined with a sensitive behavioral inhibition system. Let's sit with that for a moment. The behavioral inhibition system, or BIS, is a circuit in your brain that acts like a highly sensitive motion detector for social threat. When you walk into that room, your BIS doesn't see people, it sees variables. It sees potential for misalignment. For most people, the brain's reward center lights up when they see a familiar face because it predicts belonging and dopamine. For you, the BIS lights up first, flooding the amygdala with a subtle pulse of cortisol. It's asking, are you safe here? Are you performing correctly? Are you too much or not enough? This creates a specific kind of mental load. While others are using their cognitive bandwidth to enjoy the story being told, you are using yours to run a simulation. You are playing chess against yourself in the dark. You're calculating eye contact duration, adjusting your posture, and scanning for micro-expressions that might confirm the fear you can't shake, that you don't really belong here. And it gets deeper. There is a concept in cognitive science called the default mode network. This is the part of the brain that activates when you're not focused on an external task. It's where your sense of self lives, your memories, your future plans, and most critically, your story about who you are in relation to others. For the person who feels like an outsider, the default mode network doesn't rest in a state of neutral peace. It hums with a specific narrative. It replays the moment at lunch where you felt your laugh was half a second too loud. It anticipates the awkwardness of the next gathering. It builds a wall of otherness brick by brick, not out of malice, but out of a protective instinct that has gotten too good at its job. You are not broken. This is the first thing we need to gently place on the table. Feeling like an outsider is not a sign that your operating system is corrupted. It is a sign that your operating system was designed for a different environment. Think of it like a high-resolution lens. The same glass that allows a camera to see the faintest craters on the moon is also the glass that makes it impossible to take a quick, blurry, carefree selfie with friends. You see the details. You see the shifts in tone, the power dynamics, the unspoken expectations. That is exhausting, but it is also a form of deep perception. In personality theory, this maps closely to the trait of openness to experience, particularly the facet of intellectual curiosity and emotional depth. People who feel separate are often people who have a rich internal landscape. They have spent so much time on the outside looking in that they've become fluent in observation. But the brain, left to its own devices, will take that gift of observation and twist it into a punishment. It will use that high-definition lens to zoom in on every piece of evidence that confirms your isolation,
while filtering out the evidence that you are, in fact, standing right there in the room with everyone else. So why does the brain hold on to this pattern if it hurts? Because at some point, this vigilance was adaptive. Maybe in childhood, the emotional weather at home was unpredictable. Maybe you learned that speaking up could trigger a storm, or that being invisible was the safest way to navigate a tricky social dynamic. The brain said, if I stay on the fringe, I can see the danger coming before it hits me.
That's a brilliant, albeit tragic, survival strategy. The problem is, you've grown up. The danger is no longer there. But the brain, ever loyal to its old maps, keeps scanning the horizon. There's a mental model that helps explain this. Imagine the mind as a dimly lit room. In the center of the room, a group of people are gathered around a warm, crackling fire. That fire is connection. It's the warmth of belonging. You are in the room too. You're not locked out in the cold, but you're standing with your back against the wall, facing the door, watching for threats. You can't feel the warmth of the fire because you're too busy guarding the perimeter. The goal is not to change who you are. The goal is to turn your body around. To realize that the only thing standing between you and the fire is the direction of your attention.
Here is how we begin to turn. Not with a grand gesture, but with a quiet, deliberate shift in how we manage the brain's wiring. The first step involves something called cognitive defusion. This is a core principle from behavioral psychology. When the voice in your head says they think you're weird, you don't have to argue with it. Arguing with a thought is like trying to wrestle smoke. It only makes the room hazier. Instead, you create a small gap of awareness. You change the phrasing from "I am an outsider" to "I am noticing that my brain is telling me the story of the outsider." This works because it shifts the neural activity from the amygdala's panic center to the prefrontal cortex's observing center. You're not repressing the feeling, you're looking at the feeling. To see this in everyday life, imagine you're at a coffee shop and everyone seems to know each other. Instead of sinking into the narrative of "I'll never have that," you whisper internally, there's the outsider narrative again. "Hi, story. I see you." By labeling the pattern, you rob it of its total authority. You're no longer the character in the story, you're the one reading the book. The second step is to recalibrate your social reward system. The brain of an outsider is often hyper-focused on negative feedback. It's scanning for the frown, but blind to the nod. We need to manually override this filter through intentional attention training. This is tied to the brain's reticular activating system, which shows you more of what you look for. If you look for rejection, you will find it in a raised eyebrow or a 2-second pause in conversation. You will miss the 3 people who smiled when you walked in. So here is how this might actually play out in your life. After any social interaction, no matter how brief, you spend maybe 30 seconds reviewing it. Not for errors, but for a single piece of belonging. Maybe the barista remembered your order. Maybe a colleague asked how your weekend was and actually paused for the answer. Maybe someone just didn't move away from you. Your brain will resist this at first. It will say, that doesn't count. But over time, this practice strengthens the neural pathways that recognize safety. It's like giving your brain new glasses that are calibrated for welcome instead of warning. The third step is to shift from performance to presence. Much of the outsider's pain comes from what psychologists call self-objectification, seeing yourself from a third-person perspective and judging how you look. You are the actor and the audience in your head is brutal. To step out of this, you engage the brain's sensory motor cortex directly. The next time you feel that glass wall going up between you and the group, don't try to be more interesting. Don't try to think of something clever to say. Instead, ground yourself in a single, concrete sensory detail. Feel the weight of your feet in your shoes. Notice the texture of the mug in your hand. Hear one specific sound in the room, like the hum of the refrigerator. This is not a distraction technique. It's a hard reset for the nervous system. It tells the brain, I am not an image to be evaluated. I am a body that is here.
And in that presence, you often find that the need to perform fades, and a quieter, more authentic version of you takes the driver's seat. That version might not say much, but when they do, it's because they actually want to.
The fourth step is about vulnerability of a specific, contained kind. Outsiders often feel like they have to hide everything to be safe, but the brain's mirror neurons, which are responsible for empathy, only fire when they detect genuine emotion. If you are a perfectly smooth, blank slate, other brains can't read you, and they, in turn, feel slightly on edge. You don't need to spill your soul. You just need to offer a single crack in the armor. Let's look at a simple moment where this changes everything. Instead of saying, "I'm fine," when you're tired, you say, "I think I slept in a weird position, feeling a little foggy today." It's small, it's human, and it works because it lowers the social barrier. You're signaling to the other person's brain, "I am not a threat, I am just a person with a stiff neck." This small act of shared imperfection is the glue of connection. The fifth and final step is to find your function. As we talked about earlier, you might have learned to be useful to earn your place. That's not a bad thing if we redirect the target. Instead of using your observational skills to monitor for threats, use them to notice the person in the room who looks even more lost than you feel. Psychologically, this is called shifting from an internal focus to an external task. When you are focused on making someone else comfortable, your default mode network, the part that spins the story of your isolation, goes quiet. It has to. It can't run the self story and run a mission of care at the same time. Picture this moment unfolding in real time. You see someone standing by the snack table, clutching their plate like a life raft. You don't have to be a charismatic host. You just walk over and stand near them. You say, "The cheese on these things is either the best thing ever or a serious risk. I haven't decided yet." That's it. You've just created a tiny island of solidarity in a sea of social pressure. You are no longer the outsider. You are the finder of other outsiders. So let's bring this back to that dimly lit room we talked about. All of this, the naming of the story, the retraining of attention, the grounding in the body, it's all just a gentle turning. It's the slow, patient process of uncrossing your arms, taking a breath, and turning your face toward the fire. You don't have to be in the center of the circle. You don't have to be the loudest voice or the one who knows the secret handshake. You only need to stop guarding the door. The door is fine. The room is safe enough. And the warmth that you thought was reserved for other people has actually been there all along, just waiting for you to notice that you were never standing in the cold. You were just looking the wrong way. And maybe that's enough to carry with you. Just that one quiet thought that the distance you feel is not a measurement of space, but a trick of the light.